Hello, Glenn.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you guys so much for being here. Mike. Hello. Well, okay, we'll just talk. Okay, there we go. Everybody hear me now? All right, good morning. How's everybody today? Thank you guys so much for being here. Hello to everyone watching online. Thank you for tuning in. And of course, thank you to Nikon for putting on this incredible forum. It's such a thrill to be a part of this and to share work alongside so many inspiring speakers and image makers. So, as Mike said, I am a photographer based in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Beautiful, beautiful place. And I am a freelancer, which means I do a wide variety of assignment work, but without question, one of my favorite subjects is landscape. I love the journey that it takes you on, from from identifying a place that you want to visit, to doing all the logistics and research, to getting to that place, and then of course the opportunity to be there, to be in the environment, to watch the light, and to document that to share with the world. So let's see here, I'm going to start. So of course, being in Jackson Hole, I have to start in Grand Teton National Park. This is the iconic Snake River overlook, an incredible destination. Now, this is shot at what we call magic hour. It's that beautiful time of day, happens at sunrise and at sunset, where you have this warm, directional quality of light. It's an amazing time to be out in the landscape. And what I want to talk about first is quality of light. So as photographers, light really is everything. It gives us the look and feel and the mood to our pictures. And so it's really important to choose a time of day or a quality of light that works well for the photograph that we want to make. Now, I love being out at this time of day, and as landscape shooters, we certainly trend towards those magic hour times, but that doesn't mean that there's not other times of day that you can explore and still make great pictures. This is Namibia, the Namib Desert. I absolutely love the desert landscape. It's stark, it's beautiful. It's an incredible, incredible landscape to explore. And these are two oryx. It's the national animal of Namibia. And if you'll notice, the light is directly overhead, and you can tell that by the shadows right underneath the animals. Now, this is a really contrasty and harsh type of light. But in this environment, I think it works really well. And so the point here is to really research, the place that you're photographing and the type of light that resonates with the pictures you want to make, and then go out and find that light. So composition is the next thing that I really think a lot about when I'm out making pictures. This is Sonoma, California. I love visiting California. Beautiful landscape, incredible light. And when I came across this scene, I knew immediately it would be a great opportunity to create a picture that has a lot of depth. So by framing the trail here in the bottom of the frame the way that I did, it creates a path for the viewer to flow through the image. I really love working with aspects of the landscape and using that to arrange the picture and create a path for the viewer to journey through the image. So the rule of thirds is a technique we hear often. And the essential idea of the rule of thirds is by placing the subject in the third of the frame, it gives you a more pleasing or balanced composition. Now, whenever I hear the word rule or a technique, I always like to, it's good to learn it, but I love to push it and explore it and go against it even. And so in this picture, this is a beautiful black church in Iceland. And, I love the big landscape around it, this beautiful sky that was happening. And so to really feature all that, I placed the church, which is the subject, right in the center of the frame with a low horizon line. And for me, this picture feels balanced. It goes against that quote-unquote rule. So the idea there, again, is challenge those rules and explore them and find ways of creating compositions that resonate with you. So this is the Golden Gate, the incredible city of San Francisco. This picture was made with a 70 to 200 lens. It's a little bit more of a detailed landscape shot. You know, we often think about landscapes as being big, wide compositions, but I love to focus in on the details as well. And with this scenario, using this 70-200 at a slightly longer focal length, it compresses the layers nicely. And I just think it made a really great use of this lens in this situation. And also, notice the sailboat here in between the support lines of the bridge. This is a really simple thing, but I want to point out that it's really intentional to be, or really important to be intentional about your framing. Really pay attention to everything that's happening in front of the camera. If it shouldn't be there, leave it out. Just be aware of what's happening. And really, I like to always think that I'm not taking pictures, I'm making photographs. Another great way to focus on details is with depth of field. This image was made with one of my favorite lenses, a 35mm f1.4. Fast prime lens. It's a great lens for making pictures like this. And so if you'll notice, the detail is all there in the side of the barn, the beautiful light that's happening, the texture of the wood. And by using a shallow depth of field, your eyes go right to that part of the image. That's the important part of the image. But of course, you still have a great sense of place by the way the Tetons are framed in the background. And I just love that fall off that you get with that fast prime lens. Another great thing about working with prime lenses is, we have a lot of lens choices available to us, and I love working with zooms, but I tend to get a little lazy when I have a zoom lens because, I'll just simply stand in one place and zoom in and out to change my composition. But with a prime lens, you are the zoom. If you want to zoom in and out, you physically have to move. And for me, that's a great way of working. It really engages me with the scene and the place that I'm photographing. And I just think it's a great way to work when it makes sense to have a selection of prime lenses. So vertical compositions are great too. You don't have to just stick with horizontals. I love to shoot a lot of vertical pictures. If I'm working on assignment or for an editor, it's great to have options for cover art or for design within the article. And of course, we all love to share our pictures on Instagram. Vertical compositions look great on Instagram, so I always try to make sure I shoot, a few different options when I'm photographing a scene. This is from Capitol Reef National Park, a really wonderful, bizarre, weird desert landscape. I love working with neutral density and creating long exposures when there's flowing water. So this is a really beautiful waterfall in Iceland. And on this particular day, the light was very soft. It's a great quality of light for making these types of pictures. When you have that nice, even, cloudy light, it really lets you feature all the detail. You can see all the detail across the landscape. And so in this scenario, it's a great option for making long exposures with flowing water. And so I essentially figured out my composition. I got up close to the waterfall here and put my neutral density filter on the lens and made some exposures. And this is the result. And I just love the soft silkiness of the water and the way that it contrasts with the rough, dark textures of the stone around it. So it's really fun to experiment with our tool as a way to be creative as well. So this is a multiple exposure. And this is really easy to do. It's built right into the photo shooting menu on your camera. So this is a beautiful fall day in the Tetons. We had really brilliant colors in the aspens. There's a little bit of fresh snow on the landscape, and I love the way that the colors of the aspens were contrasting with the evergreens behind it. But the single frames that I was shooting just weren't really that interesting. And so I decided I'd play a little bit with this multiple exposure feature that we have. It's built right into our menu on our Nikon cameras. And you simply go to that menu, you tell the camera how many exposures you want it to make, and it will build all of those into a single raw file. Very easy to do. So I think this is maybe 3 or 4 exposures. And I set that up and I just started shooting, and this was the result. And it's kind of painterly. It has this really nice effect, and it was a lot more interesting than the other pictures I was making. So again, a fun way to use your tool as a creative tool in itself. Okay, embrace the weather. There is nothing that will give your pictures more drama than stormy, crappy days. This was a day, it was like 4 or 5 degrees below zero. It would have been really easy to stay at home, not get out of bed, but you just got to go because you never know what you're going to miss if you don't get out there and go see what's happening. This is one of my favorite spots in the Tetons. This is the Grovant River with Sheep Mountain in the background. And right before this picture happened, it was totally gray, not very interesting. But I knew that if I was patient, just maybe the clouds would break and I'd get something a little more interesting. Sure enough, right at sunrise, this magic hour light came through, lit up the landscape, created this beautiful color contrast between the warm light and the cool, frosty landscape. And this was just a magic moment. And as soon as this happened, it was gone. And then the sky went back to gray, and it was just, whatever. And I was probably one of the few people out that morning that got to see this moment. And, just an absolutely beautiful, surreal moment. And, if you didn't get out there and go, you wouldn't see it. So you should go. Always go is the point. Okay. I live in this really iconic destination, which is Jackson Hole, Grand Teton National Park. It's an incredible place. These 6 frames are from one of the most famous spots in the park. This is Oxbow Bend. For any of you landscape shooters out there, you're probably familiar with it. So living in a place like this, it's always important to push yourself to try new things and see the place in a new way. And so every time I go back to this place or really any place in the Tetons, I'm always thinking about how can I do something a little different or see it in a different way. So what you see here are 6 frames that I made from a viewpoint that I hadn't visited before until this day. It was a beautiful morning, fall day, got to this spot and decided to hike up above the bend, and I was greeted with this incredible view of the entire expanse of the landscape. And I knew that this would be a really cool opportunity to do a panoramic image. This is really simple to do, and I love doing that in a big open, wide place like this. So these 6 frames you see here, I stitched into this here. Very simple. I didn't need a tripod. There was plenty of light. I used my 35 millimeter lens with my 850, and I simply framed the scene from left to right, looking through the viewfinder, and then I made those 6 frames you saw in the previous slide. And then back at home in the software, I stitched this together and made this panoramic. Now just imagine the detail that would be in this print if you were able to print it. It looks awesome up here on the screen. I'd love to see a gigantic print up here. So again, I love visiting these iconic destinations. Delicate Arch in Arches National Park in Utah. As a landscape photographer, we go to these places and we often find ourselves, with the challenge of dealing with people. It's often that we want to make pictures without people in them, which is totally understandable. But as you know, the parks these days are, really popular, and there's always a lot of people, especially in iconic locations such as this. And so I look at that as an opportunity. I think it's important to embrace that. On this morning, we had this incredible light. It was this is sunrise. And as the light started to come across the foreground here, I thought, man, this is a great opportunity to make a picture and work with the people that were there. And so I was there with this couple. They were watching the sunrise with me, and I just explained to them, hey, would you guys help me make a picture? And I told them what I wanted to do, and they were happy to do it, and this is the frame that we made. I love the leading line of their shadow, how it takes you into where they're standing, and then of course that carries you on into the arch and into the sunrise. So again, embrace those moments, embrace the challenges that you come into in a situation. And I made friends with these guys. I got their information, I sent them the picture, and of course they're thrilled to have the picture. So a great way to connect with people as well. Now this image was made during an assignment. most of what you've seen is all personal work, but this is actually a shot that I did on an assignment for a magazine doing a story on Kilimanjaro. We were climbing the mountain and doing a story about climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, which is the highest peak in Africa. And as we summited, I noticed the glaciers. Glaciers, I'm fascinated by glaciers. They're absolutely beautiful. And as we all know, what's happening with climate change, glaciers are going away. And so I immediately asked my guide, you know, what's the situation here? What's happening with the glaciers in this place? And he said to me that he believed that within 10 years they would be gone. Now, I was completely struck by that. I mean, that is a crazy thing to wrap your head around, that this majestic, beautiful object is disappearing. And so as we were walking around and exploring, making pictures, you know, this is in my head, like how can I put context to this crazy thing that he had just told me and give it a sense of scale as well. And so I asked him to stand next to the glacier. He put his hand on it, and this is the frame that we made. You know, it really helped put some context to this story of climate change, and also give scale to, you know, what might otherwise be hard to tell without, you know, an object in the picture. This was a really fun moment. Another picture made on assignment. This is in the South Pacific off the coast of Australia. So I was out shooting landscapes on this beautiful coastline of this island, photographing the islands here in the background. And as I came upon the hill that I was photographing from, this beautiful sooty tern, it's a seabird, started flying around me, and he was like right in front of me, like swooping by me, and you know, I was kind of ducking. I mean, it was like this really cool moment. And you know, I realized like this would be a great opportunity to kind of, you know, capture that and make a picture that, you know, was just really spontaneous and in the moment. So I chose a slightly shallow depth of field and focused on him as he was flying by, and I just got this really great moment with him. And I think that this picture is a little bit more interesting than what it would have been without him, you know, if it was just the seascape. So, you know, again, the idea is like, you know, be in the moment, be prepared, and embrace these like opportunities that happen when you're out exploring a place. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears a little bit here and show you a brand new project, which I'm really excited about. This is shot not too far from here. So Badwater Basin Aerials, it's a working title. This is a new thing. So Badwater Basin is part of Death Valley National Park, which is just a couple hours here from Vegas. It is an aerial landscape project and kind of a new foray for me. Aerial photography is a new adventure and a really cool challenge and something I'm excited to explore a lot. And so I'll show you a couple of the behind the scenes pictures to set it up, and then I'll go through the images that we made. So this picture here is, these are my good friends Paul Holan, who's an amazing photographer from Tasmania, and my good friend Shell, our pilot. And this is the Cessna 172 aircraft that we use to do this project. And what they're doing here is going through the flight plan on the morning before we were to take off. And what I want to point out here is how important it is to prepare. You know, any shoot, you got to put a lot of time and effort and planning so that you're there at the right time, you've got the light that you need, and when you're there, you're ready to make pictures. When you add aviation into the mix, it adds a whole nother level of challenges. And so this was just a great moment between the boys here before we took off that morning to head to Death Valley. So here is this is the epicenter of Death Valley. What you see right here is all Badwater Basin, and it's surrounded by these two mountain ranges. This is Zabriskie Point here in the bottom of the frame. So Badwater Basin is one of the most desolate, dry, extreme environments on the planet. It's 270 feet below sea level. It's a dry lake bed. So all of that you see there in the center of the frame. But it's when you get above it that it really starts to reveal itself. So here, this is looking out the window of the Cessna. Now, this is a really challenging project for a number of reasons, which I learned the hard way. I made a lot of mistakes, but that's part of doing a personal project and pushing yourself. You learn from your mistakes and you improve on them, and then you go back and get your pictures. So you have a lot of wind. You're shooting out of an open window. The plane is moving fast. It has a tremendous amount of vibration, and it's a small cockpit or seat, a space that you're working in. So, you have to overcome all those challenges. One way of doing that, I worked primarily with the D850, a 70-200 VR lens, and I had the great opportunity to use the Z7 and a 24-70, and we know the Z7 has the built-in vibration reduction. So the combination of those two cameras and lenses really made this shoot possible. And so you can start to see some of these beautiful details, and that's really what we photographed. So let me get into the images. As you come across the mountains, the first thing you see is this incredible expanse of color and pattern and texture. It's absolutely breathtaking. And you can't see this from the ground. You have to be in the air to see this. The detail, the texture, the color is just absolutely stunning. Now, all of this is created by water. So as erosion happens, landscapes are eroded by water in time, right? Now, this is one of the driest places on Earth, but from time to time, it gets precipitation. And as that rain comes through the valley, it flows through the basin, carving these intricate patterns and details through the minerals and the salt flat of the basin. I mean, it's just overwhelmingly beautiful. And so as we continued to fly, I started to really focus in on the details, the shapes and colors and so on. I mean, this is all as you see it. There's no manipulation here. This is exactly the way it looks. It's just incredible and really was unexpected. I had no idea that we were going to be able to see this until we actually got above it. And it's just like an amazing revelation to come to a place and be so incredibly shocked by the beauty you see. So this project's really about texture, form, composition. And these two pictures here, this is from the same spot. It's the same feature, but it's just photographed at 2 different times a day. And I want to put these together to just highlight how the time of day and the quality of light will completely change your picture. So this was made in the middle of the day, very direct light. And over here on the right, you can start to see this beautiful contrast between that shadowy blue light that's happening from the shadow of the mountain range and then this warm sunlight that's starting to cross the landscape. And this is where things really started to sing for me. I love that beautiful directional light, that color contrast that you get between the shadow and the sunlight. And it just really highlights the textures and these features of the landscape in such a really beautiful way. Now, I shot a lot of different images. Shooting a project like this, particularly this, is amazing because you can make so many different pictures so quickly. I've shot a lot of verticals, of course. And when you're flying around this place with a zoom lens, to change the picture, you can simply zoom in and out. And I mean, you can just make so many pictures in this scenario, and it's just such a thrill to have a subject where you can produce content in such a fluid and prolific way. And so here, this will highlight that nicely. So this picture and the next 2 pictures are all of essentially the same feature, just at different focal lengths as we circled the space. So this is a little bit wider, zoomed in a bit more, and then all the way. I love the graphic nature of these compositions and just highlighting these beautiful features within the landscape. Okay, so this is the last picture, and what you see here is actually water flowing into the landscape. So we were very lucky on this particular day. There must have been some type of rain event somewhere earlier in the day or maybe the day before. And as we were flying I noticed, off in the distance that it looked what looked like water. And so I asked Shell, the pilot, if he'd fly us up to this spot. And as we started to circle around, we noticed that it was in fact water flowing in. And as we came around this spot,